In the crimson glow of a desert sunset, where the saguaro cacti stood like silent sentinels against the endless Arizona sky, Kaya Thunderhawk rode her horse across the parched earth. Her black hair whipped like a raven's wing in the wind, and her eyes, sharp as flint, scanned the horizon for threats that never came. At 35, Kaya was a force of nature, a descendant of the fierce Mescalero Apache warriors who had once roamed these lands unchallenged. She had built her life on the reservation's edge, running a small herbal remedy shop that drew tourists from Phoenix and locals alike. "I mixed the old ways with the new," she'd say with a wry smile, handing over jars of sage-infused salves that promised healing for body and soul. But Kaya didn't need promises, she was her own healer, her own shield. Life had carved her that way. Her father, a medicine man, had taught her the songs of the earth before cancer stole him away when she was 15. Her mother followed soon after, succumbing to the bottle that drowned unspoken grief. Left to raise her younger brother, Tahoma, Kaya had dropped out of school, worked odd jobs, and fought tooth and nail to keep their family home, a modest adobe house with a tin roof that sang under summer rains. Tahoma had flown the coop years ago, chasing dreams in Albuquerque, but Kaya stayed rooted. "Roots make us strong," she'd mutter to the empty rooms, ignoring the echo of loneliness that sometimes crept in at dawn. Men had come and gone to cowboys with fleeting smiles, city slickers promising escape, but she sent them packing. "I'm strong enough alone," she'd declare, her voice a thunderclap that brooked no argument. And she was. She fixed her own fences, mended her own heart, and faced the world with fists clenched and chin high. One sweltering July afternoon, as the monsoons teased without delivering, Kaya knelt in her garden, pulling weeds from rows of echinacea and yarrow. The air hummed with cicadas, and sweat beaded on her bronze skin. That's when she heard it, a low, guttural cough echoing from the arroyo beyond her fence. Curiosity, that rare intruder in her solitary routine, pulled her to her feet. She grabbed her grandfather's old Winchester from the porch, more habit than fear, and crept toward the sound. There, slumped against a boulder, was a man she didn't recognize. He was Navajo, by the turquoise pendant glinting at his throat, but weathered beyond his years, maybe 40, with lines etched deep around eyes the color of storm clouds. His clothes were threadbare, a faded denim shirt stained with dust and something darker, like blood. A beat-up truck sat nearby, its hood propped open, steam hissing from the engine like an angry spirit. He clutched his side, wincing, and when his gaze met hers, it wasn't with the wariness of a stranger but with a quiet plea that pierced her armor. "You lost?" Kaya asked, her tone clipped, rifle still in hand. She didn't lower it, trust was earned, not given. He managed a weak chuckle, which turned into another cough. "More like broken. Truck gave out miles back. Thought I'd walk it off, but..." He gestured vaguely at his ribs. "Old injury acting up. Name's Eli Yazzie. Just passing through, visiting kin in Window Rock." Kaya's instinct screamed to turn away. Strangers brought trouble, and she had enough of her own. But something in his voice, the raw honesty, untainted by charm or guile, held her. She lowered the rifle slightly. "Kaya Thunderhawk. This is private land. You need water?" He nodded gratefully as she fetched a canteen from her porch, thrusting it toward him without meeting his eyes. As he drank, she noticed the tremor in his hands, the way he favored his left side. "Fell off a ladder last month, hauling hay for my sister's goats," he explained between sips. "Dachshund gallop," said cracked ribs, "but bills pile up faster than they heal. Navajo way, keep moving, right?" She snorted, a sound that masked the flicker of recognition. Her own scars were invisible, but they ached in the quiet hours. "Apache way too. Sit. I'll look at it." Before she could second-guess, she was kneeling beside him, her calloused fingers probing gently. He winced but didn't pull away. "Bruising's bad. Could be internal. You need a doctor. Can't afford one." His words hung heavy, laced with the defeat of a man who'd carried too much for too long. Kaya stood abruptly, frustration bubbling. Why did the world always test the strong ones first? She thought of her father's stories, the ones about how the Creator wove threads of fate to humble the proud. But she wasn't proud, she was practical. "Fine. Come inside. I'll wrap it with comfrey poultice. Old remedy. Works better than pills anyway. Eli hesitated, searching her face for the catch. There was none. Just a woman who'd stared down worse than a stranded Navajo with a busted truck. As she helped him to his feet, his weight surprisingly light on her shoulder, Kaya felt an unfamiliar warmth stir in her chest. Not pity, but something deeper, like the first rain after drought. She shoved it down. Don't get ideas, she warned, her voice gruff. One night. Then you're gone. Inside her home, the air was cool and scented with drying herbs. Eli eased onto a worn couch, watching as she ground leaves into a paste with practiced efficiency. You're good at this, he said softly. Like you've mended more than bones. She paused, pestle mid-grind. Memories flooded, bandaging Tahoma's scraped knees, staunching her mother's nosebleeds after drunken falls. Life's a battlefield. You learn or you break. Handing him the poultice, she added, hold still. As she bound his ribs with strips of clean cloth, their eyes locked for a moment too long. His were kind, crinkled at the corners with a humor that hadn't yet surrendered to hardship. Thank you, Kaya. Not many would stop for a stranger these days. I'm not most people, she replied, tying off the bandage. But even as she said it, a crack formed in her resolve, a tiny fissure where doubt seeped in. Was strength truly solitude, or had she built walls so high she'd forgotten how to climb them? That night, as thunder rumbled in the distance, finally delivering sheets of rain that drummed on the tin roof, Kaya lay awake in her bedroom, listening to Eli's steady breathing from the couch. She'd offered him her brother's old quilt, a gesture that felt too intimate. Questions swirled. Who was this man, really? A drifter? A sign? Fate, her grandmother used to say, arrives uninvited but never by accident. Kaya rolled over, punching her pillow. Strong enough alone, she whispered to the shadows. But the words tasted hollow, like wind-scoured sand. The next morning dawned clear, the desert reborn in puddles that mirrored the sky. Eli was up early, brewing coffee on her stove with the ease of someone who'd made do in lean times. Fixed the truck's radiator with some hose from your shed, hope that's okay. Oh, you big. Kaya shrugged, pouring herself a mug. Pay it forward sometime. But as they sat at her scarred oak table, sharing stories over eggs scrambled with wild onions, she found herself opening up. He spoke of his sister, Lena, raising 3 kids alone after their parents passed in a flash flood. How he'd driven rigs cross-country to send money home, only to lose his job when the economy tanked. Thought I'd be the rock, he admitted, staring into his cup. Turns out, even rocks erode. Her throat tightened. I know that riverbed. She told him about Tahoma, how he'd called last Christmas, drunk and distant, promising to visit but never showing. Family's the hardest chain to carry. Eli reached across the table, his hand brushing hers, just a feather touch, gone in an instant. But it ignited something electric, a spark that raced up her arm and lodged in her heart. She pulled back, cheeks flushing. Trucks fixed. Roads that way. He stood slowly, wincing less now. Kaya, if it's not too bold, could I come back? Help with the garden, maybe? Pay off that debt proper. She laughed, sharp and deflecting. I manage fine alone. But as he drove away, the dust cloud from his tires lingering like a ghost, Kaya felt the emptiness of her house more acutely than ever. The poultice had healed his body, but what salve existed for a soul adrift? Days blurred into weeks. The tourists came with their questions about crystals and chakras, but Kaya's mind wandered to storm-gray eyes and calloused hands. She threw herself into work, harvesting lavender under the relentless sun, but at night, dreams came vivid, unbidden, of shared laughter around a fire, of hands intertwined against the cold. Foolish, she'd scold her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror. Yet, when Tahoma finally called, his voice slurred with apology, she hung up mid-sentence, too weary to fight the same old battles. Then, fate, or perhaps the desert spirits, struck its next blow. A call from the clinic in town, Lena Yazzie, Eli's sister, in labor complications. Far from home, no insurance, and Eli unreachable on the road. Kaya's herbal shop had a reputation, the nurse begged for her help. She's asking for that poultice you make for the swelling. Heart pounding, Kaya loaded her truck with supplies and drove the hour. The drive back was a quiet revelation, the highway lights flickering like fireflies against the velvet night. Kaya's truck rumbled steadily, but inside, a storm raged, soft, insistent, eroding the cliffs of her self-imposed solitude. Eli's hand rested lightly on hers, a bridge she'd never dared cross. Every bump in the road sent a jolt through her, not of fear, but of possibility. The desert whispered secrets through the open window, the yip of coyotes, the rustle of creosote bushes heavy with rain scent. For the first time in years, Kaya didn't feel like she was racing against the wind, she was riding it. Back at her adobe, the house felt different, larger, yet fuller. Eli helped unload the truck, his movements careful but stronger, the poultice working its magic. "Lena's stable," he said, setting down a cooler of leftover herbs. "The baby's name Ayana. It means eternal blossom. Fitting, after tonight." Kaya nodded, busying herself with putting things away to hide the lump in her throat. Eternal blossom. Her own life had been thorns and thistles, blooming only in defiance. Good name. Strong roots. He leaned against the counter, watching her with that steady gaze. Like you, Kaya. Roots that weather everything. She turned, arms crossed, the old defense rising. Don't romanticize it. I've just survived. Eli stepped closer, not crowding, but close enough for her to smell the faint sage on his skin from the hospital. Surviving's the start. Living's what comes after when you let someone share the load. His voice was low, threaded with the vulnerability of a man who'd lost his way but found a map in her eyes. An unexpected turn hit then, swift as a rattler's strike. Her phone buzzed on the counter, Tahoma's name flashing. She ignored it at first, but it persisted, insistent as a drumbeat. With a sigh, she answered. What now? Sis. I messed up bad. His voice was thick, broken. Lost the job. Girlfriend left. I'm at a motel in Albuquerque, but I can't do this alone anymore. The words echoed Eli's own from days ago, a mirror she couldn't unsee. Kaya's knees buckled slightly, she gripped the counter. Tahoma, her little shadow, calling for rescue after years of ghosting. The weight of it, of all the unspoken pleas she'd buried, crashed down. Tears welled, hot and uninvited. Eli was there in an instant, his arms enveloping her without question. Hey, it's okay. Talk to me. She did, the dam breaking in sobs that shook her frame. She poured off the years, the endless shifts at the diner to pay his tuition, the holidays spent waiting for a knock that never came, the fear that she'd failed him by being too strong, too alone. I told myself I didn't need anyone, she choked out. But God, Eli, it hurts. He held her tighter, his chin resting on her head. You didn't fail. You carried him and yourself further than most could. But you don't have to carry it all forever. Let me help. Let him help, when he's ready. In that moment, profound realization bloomed, her strength had been a fortress, but fortresses could become prisons. The power of humanity wasn't in standing unbowed, it was in bending, in weaving arms with others to form a circle unbreakable. Kaya pulled back, wiping her face with the hem of her shirt, a watery laugh escaping. Your trouble, Yazzie. Good trouble. His smile was sunrise over canyons, warm, illuminating. The best kind. They spent the next days in a tentative dance, building something fragile yet fierce. Eli stayed on, true to his word, tending the garden while his ribs mended. Together, they harvested baskets of chamomile under the relentless sun, their laughter mingling with the buzz of bees. He taught her Navajo stories of Spider-Woman, the weaver of fates, while she shared Apache songs that called the stars down to listen. Touches grew bolder, a brush of fingers while passing tools, a hand on the small of her back as they knelt in the dirt. Each one melted another layer of her guarded heart, revealing the tender core beneath. But fate, ever the trickster, wasn't done testing. A week later, as monsoon season unleashed its fury, Kaya's shop flooded, a freak flash flood turning the arroyo into a roaring beast. Water surged through the door, ruining shelves of dried herbs and jars of tinctures. She stood in the wreckage at dawn, soaked and stunned, the acrid tang of mud choking the air. Her livelihood, her legacy, gone in a night. Word spread fast on the reservation grapevine. By noon, trucks pulled up, neighbors with shovels, elders with pots of stew, children hauling buckets. And leading them? Eli, his face set with determination, organizing the chaos like a general. "We've got this, Kaya," he called over the din, slinging sandbags with his good arm. Tahoma even showed unannounced, sheepish, his city clothes muddied as he shoveled beside her. "Heard from Auntie's cousin," he mumbled. "Couldn't stay away." Kaya worked in a daze, the community a living heartbeat around her. Mrs. Begay from the trading post brought tarps, the schoolteacher rounded up teens for cleanup. Laughter cut through the grimness, stories of past floods, jokes about dancing with the rain spirits. But the true climax came as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of forgiveness. Eli found her on the porch, exhausted, staring at the half-ruined shop. He carried a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "For you," he said, placing it in her lap. Inside was a quilt, hand-stitched, patches of denim and flannel interwoven with turquoise thread, embroidered with thunderbirds and blooming yucca. "Lena and I worked on it last winter. For the baby, but it felt right for you now. A weaving of our stories." Tears streamed freely as Kaya traced the stitches, each one an act of compassion, a thread of generosity from hands that knew hardship. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "But why?" "Because you deserve beauty, Kaya. And because alone, we're threads. Together." He knelt before her, taking her hands. "We're a tapestry. Stronger. Warmer. Let me be part of yours." The emotional peak crested then a wave of pure, transformative love. Kaya pulled him close, their foreheads touching, breaths mingling. "I was wrong," she murmured, the words a liberation. "I'm not strong enough alone. But with you, with all of you." She glanced at the cluster of friends still working by lantern light, Tahoma among them, grinning sheepishly. Eli kissed her then in soft, soul-melting, a promise sealed in the desert's ancient language. The world hushed, as if the stars themselves approved. Months later, as autumn winds carried the scent of pinyon, Kaya and Eli stood at the shop's grand reopening. Rebuilt stronger, with higher shelves and a community mural on the wall, thunderbirds dancing with spider webs. Tahoma had stayed, apprenticing under her, his hands steady for the first time. Lena visited with Ayana, the baby cooing at the herbs, a bridge between tribes. Kaya wrapped an arm around Eli's waist, her voice steady but soft. "Fate brought you to my door, but love kept you. And in that, I found my true power, not in standing alone, but in standing with." The crowd cheered, but it was Eli's whisper that lingered. "Together, we're unstoppable." In the end, the desert taught her what no storm could break: kindness is the root that binds us, selflessness the bloom that endures. And in the quiet moments, as they watched sunsets from her porch, now their porch, Kaya knew hope wasn't a fleeting visitor, it was home, woven into every shared breath. For in a world quick to divide, the greatest strength lies in the hands we hold, melting souls into one eternal flame.